attitude, behavior, and character. Those are things that people want to focus in on. And kids today, many times, get an attitude. And when they get an attitude, the last thing they need from you is an attitude back. But what they need you to do, quite frankly, is to make sure that attitude doesn't get them where they say they want to go or do. And sometimes you just get to a point where you just sort of tune them out. Okay? And they'll watch how they try to engage you in battle. And they'll set traps for you. Again, they know all your soft spots. Okay? Just like when you and your husband fight. You know, you and your husband fight, you know exactly what to say. Oh, honey, no, you go ahead and play golf. No, I know. Yeah, no, you go to two back and play golf. I'll just stay here with your mother. Now, that's a spit in your soup. That means I hope you lose your 7-iron. Okay? And you got to be on the same page. So if you want the kids to fall in line, it's really important that they look up and see mom and dad that are on the same page. Now, if you're a single parent, okay, and you're going it alone, and I've talked to a number of you, and I've heard those situations, and they're tough, but here's what you got to understand. If you're the single parent, and you've got good, firm guidelines of how we're going to behave in this family, and you stick to that, and you don't waver, your kid's got a good shot at making it in life, especially for the mom who's raising sons, especially for the single dad who's got daughters, because those are the special relationships, daddy and daughter and mother and son, okay? Now, we talk about letting reality be the teacher. Your 9-year-old doesn't clean his room, and you're a neat freak, okay? One of the reasons he doesn't clean his room is because you're a neat freak, by the way. Now, you can close the door and not look at it, shovel it out once a week, have him shovel it out even better, okay? Or you can hire 8-year-old sister to go in and clean it for 9-year-old brother. You pay for it out of 9-year-old's allowance. Once he figures out his crummy sister, that's his term, not mine, was even in his room, you got his attention, okay? So the consequences, it's a little bit like life. If you want to get your car washed, go on down and have it washed. They'll wash it for $8.95. Or you can stay in your driveway and wash it yourself. So why shouldn't the home reflect what life's all about? But I'm telling you, kids are on the take. You know, it's the gimme generation. America's the gimme generation. Take a look around what's happening in our world. My goodness. You know, we got people on the take every place we go. But it does get interesting, doesn't it? Reactions. Most of us react to things. We get angry, we get mad, okay? That never solves the problem. I'll pick on you single moms for a second. You live in a 2-bedroom apartment, okay? Bucks are hard to come by to begin with. You're just trying to make it. And you're having breakfast with your 9-year-old son one morning. He looks up at you and he says, Mommy, I want a pony. A pony? Where'd you get? Well, I'm telling you, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard of. Where'd you get an idea like that? She's got a deep voice. I'll tell you, if a bird had your brain, he'd fly sideways. What is wrong with you, a pony? That's the stupidest thing I ever heard of. I'm telling you, I live and breathe. That's a reaction. Does that help anything? No. But I'm telling you, you can learn to respond. Same situation. Mommy, I want a pony. A pony, wow. Can you imagine having your own pony? Can you imagine getting up in the morning, getting on that pony and going to school? Riding that pony by the kids at the bus stop? Going down to school, all the kids are getting off the bus, not you, you're tying up your pony. Bell rings at lunchtime, all the kids go to the school cafeteria, not you, you got to go check on your pony. Yeah, but we live in an apartment, we can't have a pony here. Kid will figure it out. I remember wanting a pony when I was a kid. There was contests on TV where if you sent in a box top, you know, you'd have a chance to win a pony. I mean, I really believed I was going to get a pony someday. One of life's real hurts. Didn't get the pony. But again, keep in mind that these kids will work you. I was in McCormick Place in Chicago, Illinois. It's a huge facility. We had this big parenthood thing. I had people from all over, and I was the keynote speaker for the thing. And it was one of those moments in life that I'll never forget. And a woman came up to me. I still remember her name, and this goes way back. And I still remember the red sweater she had on. And she came up to me after my presentation. Oh, she said, this is so good. She said, I cannot wait for my kids to misbehave. I am ready for them. And I tell audiences lots of times, when you leave, I want you to have that same thought, that you're ready. You can take these kids on and not feel defeated and bad about yourself. And so anyway, I was talking about how kids intuitively know how to get you over the barrel. In situations like there's a telephone call, and it's for you. And somebody actually wants to talk to you on the phone. It's a girlfriend you haven't talked to in ages. And I don't know who tells the kids it's time for the dog and pony show to start, but kids intuitively know that that's it. And I was just trying to mimic what that situation was like. Oh, hi, how are you? Yes, oh my goodness, it's so good to hear from you. Yeah, could you handle, would you kids please hush up? Friday night, yeah, well, Bob's out of town. Could I bring a salad? Well, could you, excuse me once, would you kids, I can hardly hear anything going on. I'm saying, you know what, this is your home. You're an adult. You have to be able to have a conversation with your kids without going through this. So I walked them through the whole thing. This is pre-email days. And back in those days, this is the time when I was doing shows like Phil Donahue. They would bring the mail in bins. I got so much mail from people. And I remember going through the mail, and I saw this little, it looked like a shoebox card. It had this little Chicago suburb on it. And I said to myself, I know who that's from. And I picked it up. And she started, her name was Lori. She said, Dr. Leman, don't you remember me? I was right in the front row. I had a red sweater on. But you were talking about what happened, you know, and the kids. And that's afternoon. I came home, and coincidence, I got a phone call from a girlfriend I have not heard from in ages. And my kid started what you called the dog and pony show, but I did exactly what you said to do. I put down the phone without comment. I took Brian and Ainsley. I put them outside. I closed the door and locked it and went back to my conversation. She said, here comes the embarrassing part. I forgot about them. She said it was some 45 minutes later when I looked through the family room out to the back patio and I saw a little hand on the window. And I said to my girlfriend, can you hang on a minute? I forgot something. And she sent me the note. The kids found an old brown grocery bag, and they wrote with it looked like a dull pencil. At the top of it said, Mommy, we love you. Then on the bottom it had an arrow that said over, O-V-I-R. I said, can we come in now? Well, this was Chicago in March, so you can imagine it was a little nippy outside. But she went on to say the next time, and I sent this back to her. I told her to put it in her scrapbook. But she said the next time the phone rang, that the kids came in the central area where the phone was located and sat in opposite chairs with their arms folded. So I'm telling you, it's possible to take the little buzzard by the beak, to make things happen, to maintain order, okay, without getting sucked in to all the things that they want to get you involved in. Now, we live in a society where if I took a show of hands and said, okay, how many of you think praise is good for kids? Most of you would put your hands up. But I don't want you to feel bad, so I'm not going to ask you to do that. I'm just going to tell you that praise is not good for children, okay? Now, I know that's counterculture. Praise God, all others pay cash. God is worthy of your praise. Your pastor isn't, nor is his wife Jan. As nice as people as they are, they're not worthy of your praise, okay? If you put them on a pedestal, the only thing they can do is fall off in front of you, okay? So, we talk about encouragement versus praise. On top of that, we have false praise, and there's a ton of that. Little League game, okay? I'm over at Coco's on Broadway having a cup of coffee. I'm reading USA Today. They got a feature article on false praise. I've talked about false praise for 30-some years. I am so vain, I'm skimming the article looking for my name. I know it's in there. I know it's in there. It's got to be in there. Not in there. I go, crap, somebody ripped me off. So I'm reading the article. And they use baseball as an example. Well, I told you I was a baseball player, and I dug right in the article. They talked about this little kid in a Little League game who's up the bat. He takes 3 straight pitches and strikes out. If you've ever been to a Little League game and the kid throws 3 straight pitches over the plate, that's a minor miracle to begin with. But the kid strikes out. And the young parents behind the fence are yelling, great at bat, Matthew, great at bat. I got news for you, Matthew, you little loser. It was a lousy at bat. You didn't even swing. Now, don't send me an email about calling the kid a loser, okay? I'm just saying what would have been helpful is at the end of that game for the parents to come up and say, hey, Matt, rough day at the plate today. I'm going to be home early on Wednesday and Thursday night. If you want me to take you down, throw batting practice to you in the park, I'd be more than happy to. That would be helpful. But now, with no effort at all, we believe that if you just blue smoke these kids and tell them about lies about themselves, that somehow they're going to bloom forth. Nothing could be further from the truth. Now, the difference between praise and encouragement. It's a Saturday morning. You know what Saturday mornings are like for a lot of us? You got to get everything done in one day. And mom's got a dental appointment, and she's driving home, and she's thinking about all the things she's got to do, and she thinks of her kitchen, which is a complete mess. Dirty dishes from 2 nights ago still in the sink. And she says, as dead tired as I am, I got so many things I got to do, I'm going to clean that stupid kitchen first. She walks into her clean, sparkling kitchen, and she's greeted by her 12-year-old son who's got a dish towel over his shoulder and a clean, sparkling kitchen. She can't believe it. She says, Buford, did you clean this up? Sure did, Mom. Oh, you are the best boy in the whole world. You know that? Here's $10. Now, not only have you praised them, but you rewarded them with a 10-ski. And some people are saying, what's wrong with that? At least the kid did it. Well, okay. Here's the problem. The next day, hey, Mom, where's my $10? What $10? The $10 for today. What $10 for today? Yesterday, I cleaned the kitchen. You gave me 10. I cleaned it again today. Where's my 10? Now, if you want to create a carrot seeker, you got it. Just keep doing it. If you got enough $10 bills times 365, you got a clean kitchen, okay, until they want more money. So what I'm suggesting is using encouragement, which is a building block for positive, good, healthy self-image, if you will. In that same situation, you say, honey, did you clean this up? Sure did, Mom. What a thoughtful thing to do. I'll tell you, I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much. See, the takeaway is I gave back to the family. And this goes back to the question I want you to answer. Am I rearing my kid in a home or hotel? Most of us rear kids in hotels, which means we give them food service, you know, linen service, delivery service, and we ask nothing of them. Kids need to give back. All the Leman kids worked. All the Leman kids had jobs. And that's a healthy thing. You know, if you got bucks in the back pocket, it's almost worse. How many of you grew up poor? How many of you are still poor? Yeah. You know what? Being poor is a blessing in life, I think. You know, there's an old song, an old Johnny Mathis song called The Hungry Years. And the essence of the song is this guy yearns for the hungry years where we didn't have a dime, where it was just you and me. That's a great thought. People who struggle, people who don't have things, need to rely on what? Each other. If you got somebody who really loves you as you are, man, you're a wealthy person. You got good health the Lord's given you, man, you're blessed and then some. Don't worry about these things called children. But we got parents who snowplow the roads of life for children. They pay for far too many things. There's a pastor over in Longview, you'd like this one, Pastor, in Longview, Texas. The kid at age 10 decided he didn't want to go to church anymore. This is the pastor's son. I love it. And so the mother was, and they're really nice people. And the mom said, hey, help us out, Leman. We got a kid who really, he just hates going to church. I said, okay, how old is he? He's 10 years old. I said, well, why don't you do something different? Why don't you get ready on Sunday and just leave him home? And she said, what? I said, just get ready to church. You know, go to church, just leave him home. Well, he's only 10. He's 10. He's old enough to stay home. He's not going to die. Well, what happened was she called me from Longview, Texas on a Tuesday morning, and she said, hey, I got to tell you what happened last Sunday. We talked about it. We were a little nervous about it, but we left him home. Guess what? He hitchhiked to church. But he got to church. When I was a freshman in college, I hitchhiked 6,600 miles my freshman year of college. Because I went to college in Chicago. We lived in Buffalo. And I had a girlfriend. That was part of the problem. And, you know, I think about how independent I was as a kid. And I wrote myself off as being stupid and dumb and all those things I told myself. Looking back, I was pretty entrepreneurial in my life. And so I'm just telling you, that these rearing kids, it's not rocket science. We're going to take a break here in a minute. And I've designed this in such a way that we'll be able to talk a little something about birth order and see how that ties in. We're the ones that just tell people what to do. That's our idea of leadership. And rules without relationship lead to rebellion. So either extreme, you know, we talked about the authoritarian parent that knows what's best for you. These are people who just rule with the iron fist. You're going to do what I tell you to do. Hey, you want something to cry about? I'll give you something to cry about. Oh, you don't want to take her with you? Stay home. You know that one? Or you had the father or the mother who had the temper, and when they yelled or screamed or did something, you'd click your little heels together and your body would tighten up. That's being reared is the proper term, actually, not raised, reared in that authoritarian home. Well, way over here, on the other extreme, guess what? You got the permissive parent. These are a dime a dozen. Oh, Dr. Leman, Ralph and I strongly believe that every child should get a trophy. Every child should be a winner. That's why we've enrolled Melissa in non-competitive soccer. I mean, how do people think of these things? You know, there's something wonderful about learning to lose, learning to not get your own way. Anybody who's ever played sports knows there's a winner and a loser. By the way, there's studies done on all these non-competitive sports, and the kids keep score. That's funny to me. And parents do far too many things for kids the kids should be doing for themselves. Would you kids turn that TV down there? I'm trying to do your homework. And so parents will do the science project for the kids. They do all those kind of things. It's crazy. You know, there comes a time of accountability where you say, hey, enough's enough. You have parents who just give kids things and money. And again, if you're blessed with money, you can put the golden road down there for the kid. And in the process, you're going to weaken that kid. And if he's married, and this wife sees that this kid's on the take from his old man or his mom or his aunt or his grandma who's ever got the source of money, I mean, that's a marriage that's not going to make it. So permissiveness reigns. But what you have to understand is if you bring up your kid in a permissive way today, he'll rebel. But if you bring up a kid over here at the other extreme, in authoritarian means they'll rebel. So again, little fat wise man, tell us, if that doesn't work and that doesn't work, what works? What works is being in healthy authority over your kid. And you let your kids fail. Failure is important in life. Talk to anybody who's successful. There's a guy named Abe Lincoln who failed a lot. And people, you know, in terms of ranked presidents, you're going to find Lincoln up there somewhere in the top 5. And there's a guy who had all kinds of failure. I mentioned Robert Frost today. Robert Frost, the great poet, the Atlantic says, we have no use for your vigorous verse. That's not a compliment, friends. He was 39 before he had anything published. Again, you're listening to a guy that graduated 4th in bottom of his class in high school. And a lot of people wrote off. I dedicated my very first book to my high school counselor, who told me, Leman, I couldn't get you admitted to reform school. So you got these extremes out here, but if you're too authoritarian, your kid's going to pay for it, and so are you. And again, husband and wife, here's the deal. If you got a real autocratic husband, ladies, hey, I'm telling you, this is how we're going to do it in this house. You understand me? You got that parent, you as a woman automatically are going to try to soften things up because honestly, John, I think you're entirely too rough with the boys. And when you do, you're not helping. I mean, quite frankly, it's better for you both to be authoritarian than for one of you to be on this extreme and the other on the other. Okay? So rules without relationship lead to rebellion. Now, you firstborn children. Let's start with you. How many of you are only children, just for fun? Only children. Oh, welcome, only children. We have the perfect ones with us. Here's the question for you only children. Why were you an only child? I mean, did mom and dad take one look and say, well, that's enough of those? I had an only child tell me one night, he said, well, Doc, I think they reached perfection the first time. You know that there's some credence to that statement. Now, you firstborn children, where are you? You're the oldest of your sex in your family. Okay, and I see we got firstborns married. That's pathetic. So you got two people who are married who know exactly how life ought to be. Your husband's driving. He hangs a simple left-hand turn. As only his firstborn wife can say is, why are you turning here? See, she's got a better way. All you got to do is hop on the interstate. You'll be there in a second. They're the great shoulders. And I call those firstborn women Martha Luthers because they're the great reformers. They're always reforming. They always have a better idea. Now, I'm married to Mrs. Uppington, the firstborn. And one day, we had this conversation, okay? I said, honey, you're bossy. She didn't miss a beat. She said, I'm not bossy, honey. My ideas are just better than yours. How do you beat that? Well, anyway, firstborns, reliable, conscientious list makers. They don't like surprises. They're planners and organizers by their nature, okay? Now, As I describe that firstborn, there's firstborns here that aren't vaguely close to that description. Let me describe you. To put it bluntly, you're a slob. You're a procrastinator. If we went to your house, you have piles all over. You have piles at desk. At work, you have piles in your home. Someone asks you to find something, you know exactly which pile to look at. You can find it with ease. Want to screw this person up? Move their piles. Now, this is what I know about you. This gets interesting. It's uncanny because I know you grew up with a critical-eyed parent. In other words, a parent who could spot a flaw at 50 paces. Again, let me put this in a spiritual sense. God sees all your flaws, and he loves you despite your stupidity. You can be dumb as mud. But see, in our humanness, we see the flaw in other people. Where's the cabinet maker here? Is there a guy here that's a cabinet maker? One? Anybody? Put your hand up. There's one right there. All right. Now, this guy can make anything. If you're a cabinet maker, I mean, these guys are skilled craftsmen, okay? And people will marvel at what he can create with his hands. And people will say, you made that gun rack? You made that bookcase? You made that whatever? And he says, yeah. And they're raving about it, okay? They're raving about what he made. You know what he's thinking in all probability? If you only knew. On the back side of that, there's a flaw. Question, is that true in your life? Yeah, he says, yeah. I mean, these guys, they're a classic example of what I'm talking about. They can't get perfect enough. And that's tough because these guys are skilled. These guys do great things. And yet, you work toward perfection. And perfection is slow suicide. You're never going to get there. So you realize that you're imperfect. You realize you're incomplete. But the good news is, if you're a believer and you have the power of God in your life, hey, flaunt your imperfection. Flaunt it. I tell stories about myself where, you know, I ate a whole pumpkin pie in one sitting. You know, it's a funny story. I don't have time to tell it, but I ate the whole pumpkin pie. And I always tell people, I say, well, that's my imperfection. What's yours? We're an imperfect lot of people. Think about people you really like in life. I mean, I've hung out with some of the big stars, you know. But you know the guys I really like in life? Bill Cosby. I hung out with Cosby for a whole day. I had him myself for about 40 minutes, just the two of us, alone. And he was awesome. But you know what? He cared about other people. He took time with other people, you know. He didn't see himself as better than other people. Regis Philbin, there's another one. I'll give you the flip side. Barbara Wawa, not one of my favorite people in life. Again, she thinks her doo-doo is raspberry sorbet. But again, are those the kind of people that you're drawn to? No, you like people who are down-to-earth people who just, you know, they try not to be what they're not. And so you want to have that kind of an attitude. You're drawn toward those people. But firstborn see themselves as only counting in life when they're in control, when they dominate, where they win. They're highly competitive people. Okay? There are astronauts in outer space of the first 21 firstborn children. Our last election where they were trying to find a Republican to run against Obama, there were 9 of them running. 8 of the 9 were firstborn or only born children. So our leaders, in a natural sense, are firstborn children. And their first cousins' only children are little adults by age 7. Their joy in life is sneaking into adult company and just being able to listen. They love that. So then you got the first 2 kids in the family who are night and day different. So whatever the firstborn is, the secondborn isn't. But that slob I talked about, that one has the critical-eyed parent who is good at finding the flaw. So rather than risk ridicule or failure, they don't complete the task. These are people who are always late, by the way. They're always late for appointments. They're never on time. See, they sabotage themselves. They're like the person who's swimming in the deep end of the pool. And I come by and say, hey, get moving. And they say, hey, what are you, blind? You can't see? Can't you see my legs moving and my arms moving? I say, yeah, I see that, but you're not going anywhere. There's people like that in life that go nowhere. They just talk a good game. You want to move forward. You want to see progress. Like playing golf. You ever play golf and you hit a golf shot out there and you turn back and look at the tee? Do you know, it looks further. And you say, wow, did I hit it that far? I'm convinced that's what some of us have to do sometimes. Stop in life, see where we were, and see where we've come, and realize that with God, He's enabled us. He's given us these gifts, whatever they are. Do we have frailties and flaws? Yeah. But he's allowed us to do what we do. What better to be a teacher? I always wanted to teach at the university. And I taught part-time, and I was an administrator. Administration and faculty don't always get along. That shouldn't be a surprise to you as an education. But when I tried to do full-time teaching, I had the door slammed in my face in 1981. And I went out on my own. I remember after the first year, I turned to my wife and said, honey, we're going to be okay. Because I had just done my income tax, so my income went up 10 times in 1 year. I look back, and I say, you know, God, I am so thankful you allowed me to do what I do, because now I get to teach all over the world. I don't correct papers. I don't give grades. I just do what I love to do, and that is try to teach people how to do life a little bit more simply than others. So now, the firstborns rule, okay? They're the bossy suckers, okay? They have to achieve, they have to win, they have to dominate. The next one comes along, ought to be like a manatee, who just sort of slides through life. Where are our middle children here? You're in the middle. You have same-sex kids on both sides of you. Those are your true middles, okay? Let me say something you've never heard in life before. Honey, what do you think? See, a middle child doesn't hear that. Because the firstborn dominates, and then the baby, the family, the thing. How many of you are babies in the family? Little schnookies. Would you admit you knew how to get around your older brother and sister? Oh, we got 2 babies married? Oh, that's interesting. Did you pay the electric bill? I thought you paid the electric bill. Where are the candles? I don't know. You know, babies, Billy Crystal, Eddie Murphy, Drew Carey, Jim Carrey, Martin Short, Chevy Chase, Ellen DeGeneres, Whoopi Goldberg, Jon Stewart, Steve Colbert, Jimmy Fallon, Jay Leno, the list goes on, Joan Rivers, all babies of the family. What is it about us babies of the family? And by the way, do babies of the family do life like firstborns? Do they buy product? Remember I told you business people read the birth order book? I meant that. Because a firstborn, when he buys a car, or she buys a car, reads Consumer's Report, Car and Driver magazine, all those kind of things. They tend to be detail-oriented. Us babies, we walk on a car lot and say such things as, Shazam. Shazam, Shazam. Here's something for you. I'm going out to Dillard's to buy underwear one night, and I'm walking out in Park Mall. The year is 1980. I'm still at the university, okay? And this watch is under a high-intensity lamp. This is a gold watch. It's got 48 diamonds on it. It's under a high-intensity lamp, and I'm walking by this jeweler, and it gets my attention. And I go up to the showcase. I'm outside, and I'm going, Shazam, Shazam, Shazam. That is a watch. And I'm looking at it so intently that the woman clerk comes out of the store and stands next to me, and she sort of startles me, and she says, isn't that a beautiful watch? Oh, yeah. Oh, sure, yeah, beautiful watch. She says, it's on sale. On sale. Now, I want you to understand, this is 1980. It's on sale for $3,850. It's a $5,000 watch. Okay? Do I look like a person that wears a dress watch? I wear this thing fishing. I wear it every day. It's a reminder of how stupid I could be. I put it on an American Express card. I got a $4,000 credit limit. Okay? So I buy the dumb thing. I can't wait to show it to my wife. So finally, I get enough nerve to show it to her. At her official comment, she said, what is that? And I said, that's my watch. Don't you love it? She says, that is the tackiest thing I've ever seen. And then, as God would have it, it stopped working. It stopped working. I thought, this is my out. Now, see, babies jumping with both feet, then ask questions later. I got an out. The stupid thing doesn't work. So I take it back. The lady who sold it to me isn't there, but the store manager's there. He says, well, I want to return this watch. It doesn't work. He said, well, let me take a look at it. He says, I see the problem. You didn't wind it. I said, you got to wind the watch? $3,850, you got to wind the watch? So on the back of it, it's engraved. For those of you who understand fine movies, maybe you'll know what movie this comes from. and I'm reading it to you. It says, "Can I have your watch when you are dead?" Who knows what movie that's from? Can I have your watch when you are dead? 1985 movie. Yes, The Three Amigos. Finest movie ever made. It says, "Yes, I love you." And I told my son, "Someday, Kevin, this is going to be yours." He took it, I gave it to him for Christmas in a package, and he went like this, and he put it on his arm, and he had a long sleeve shirt on. He said, "Dad, I'll treasure this forever." Well, you know, humor. Stupid. I've done some stupid things in life. That's one of the dumbest things I ever did in life. When I think of what I could have done with $3,850, put it into a watch. In fact, the thing just fell out of it. The little thing you set it with, you know. So anyway, that's us babies. But see, I need the firstborn to help straighten me up. But Mrs. Uppington, I'm telling you, if I had you guys, if I had Pastor and Jan over for dinner, I'm telling you, it was a Saturday night dinner, okay? It would start on Thursday. The table would be set on Thursday. It's sacred. It might as well say, "This do in remembrance of me" on the side of it. Now, Wendell and Cindy, you've been to my house. Am I lying? I mean, my wife is going to have, she's going to have, it's all there. I mean, I get in trouble for going near the table. You know, my big job is to wipe out the water glasses on Saturday night. But she will make, from scratch, a big heart-shaped cookie. And she'll put it on the plate with your names on it, okay? Zane and Jan. Now, I got to tell you, that is stupid. And the time that she will put into doing all that, okay? But that's her. But so she's the firstborn that gets all upset about these little stupid things. And she needs me. But my point is that we look at relationships, it's the differences that make us a couple. So don't sweat the differences. Realize that that's what makes you a team. And as the kids look up, they see that the team is on the same page, even though they're different. That's what's going to grow those kids in the right direction. It's as simple as that. So babies are manipulative, social, outgoing, never met a stranger. I told the story about talking my way into Disney World. 9 free tickets. 4 on the front part and 5 when I made the close. The guy gave me 9 tickets at $180 a piece. I talked my way into it. That is a skill that a baby of the family can have. Because babies do their whole life getting around other people. Where firstborns are much more likely to just playing the game of life the way it's supposed to be played. Then there's you middle children. Nobody ever paid attention to you. You were squeezed between the crown prince or princess, your little brother or sister who got away with murder or everything, okay? So you guys negotiate for everything you ever had in life. You never had mom and dad to yourself, okay? You got your brother's hand-me-downs, your sister's hand-me-downs, okay? And middle children are the toughest to pin down in birth order, okay? And, you know, by the way, if you look at people in the Bible, this is interesting. Esau loved the outdoors, but Jacob was a quiet man who stayed at home. As the boys grew, Esau became a skillful hunter, while Jacob was a quiet sort who liked to stay at home. Genesis 25:27. So we're all different. You know, we're all different. Treat people differently. Watch your expectations. When you compare a kid just does something for the first time. Your second-born just did something. You know how kids will say in the summertime, "Watch me, watch me, watch me." And they do something for the first time. And you say to your husband, "Oh, Jack, do you remember when Johnny did that?" Well, what if you just told the kid? You told him what he just did for the first time, his older brother did 2 years earlier. So watch those comparisons. So treat people differently. But birth order, if you've ever ridden on Southwest Airlines, I love this example. You had fun on Southwest Airlines. It's a fun airline. They'll give you the FAA, safety thing, and you'll hear some great ones on there. There's some really funny things on there. Well, a guy, Herb Kelleher, who was their chairman and CEO, I had the privilege of interviewing and get to know. He's the baby of 4 boys. He's a hoot and a holler. He's a guy who gets on the airplane and passed out peanuts to passengers and stuff. His imprint is all over that airline. But let's check this out. At Southwest, the customer isn't always right. It's an interesting airline. I was in Las Vegas once at the counter, and a guy was making a fool of himself, as some people will do when they're irate over an airline thing. The guy comes over who had a supervisor jacket on. He handed this guy cash, and he said, I was there, I heard it. He said, fly another airline. They just canceled your reservation. At Southwest, the customer is not always right. There's times, as a family member, as a mom or a dad, where you got to understand, sometimes you have to do that to your kid. Fly another airline. Talk to the hand. I'm not interested in your dog and pony show. Flat out, I don't believe you. Okay? And sometimes you have to say that. When I was a dean of students, I had a young kid who was arrested for stealing a Kraft relish thing from 7-Eleven. And they nailed him. He was dealt with in the city courts and all that. And that same kid came and he asked me for a letter of recommendation about 2 weeks after this event. His name was Steve. I'll never forget this kid. I said, Steve, I'd be more than happy to put in writing that you're a thief. If that would be helpful for you, I'd be glad to do that. And you could have taken this little freshman and blown him over with a feather. You know, but that kid came back. In his senior year, I wrote a great recommendation for that young man. He paid for his sin. Did he make a mistake? Yeah. I made a lot of mistakes. I mean, I remember traveling across the country and forgetting to pay in any of the restaurants I ate in, from Tucson all the way to Buffalo, New York, in my 1950 Ford, okay? I remember cheating in school. I'd still be in Latin 1 if it wasn't for a guy named Karl Maas. Hey, Maas, lower your left shoulder. I mean, I've done a lot of things in life I'm not proud of. But you get to a point where, you know, it's grace. Grace exists because we need it, okay? But look at God's family. Look at the family you grew up in. Look at your brothers and sisters. Look how different we all are. So we get hung up because people aren't like us. They're people are the same. Well, that's by design. I always sit in the first row of the airplane. I watch people get on the airplane. I love to sit there and watch people. And I notice how different they all are. Wow, that's the God we serve. You know? The creation, the universe, the closest star is 4 light years away from us. How big is your God? He's a pretty cool, big God. He's been around forever. He had no beginning. He created us in this universe. And here we are, 23.5 degrees, the Earth's axis. I mean, right now, we're moving. Okay? There we are. Perfect. Move it one way this way, just 1 degree, we'd fry. 1 degree this way, we'd freeze to death. Is God who he said he was? You find his words on the cross, Jesus' words on the cross in Psalm 22. King David penned those words, okay? He's God. He made all of us. You don't have to be like somebody else. You just got to be you. Do you have your pluses? You do have your pluses. Do you have your minuses? Yes. Are there times you want to kill your children? I hope so. I mean, there's time. I mean, people ask me, did you ever think of divorcing your wife? No. Murder several times. I told my kids, if you find her dead, I did it. I mean, she's done some incredible things. I told you about driving through the garage door. That's just one of the things she did. Done plenty of things like that. We have one daughter that's very similar to her. I remember dropping her off at school one morning, and she walked out, and she had her backpack on. Her flute came out. Then a book. Then another book, and she kept walking. But God is my judge. She was at Grace Christian School in Pima. I remember extending my hand like this and just saying, Lord, keep your hand on Hannah. You know, she's the marketing manager for a huge ministry today in Chicago, Illinois. She deals with people in Zambia, Africa. I'm sure I'm going to get 2 little African grandchildren. I think she's going to adopt a couple kids. I told her, I said, find one that looks like me. None of my kids appreciate my sense of humor. That's all there is to it. But the point is, you know, we're all different. But let me take you to where the rubber meets the road with this thing about rearing kids. And it gets to the point that you only have a short window. And, you know, we live in New York State in the summertime, and our daughter, Holly, was very, very bright. She's a principal, by the way, over at Ford School. She's married to Dean. We love Holly, and she's very competent. English teacher by trade. I mean, this is a kid who was a voracious reader. But she went to a place called Grove City College, which is one of Money Magazine's top best buys in American education. But to get in the door of the place, you need an ACT score of 34 or more. If you know anything about that, that's really high. You got to be bright. Well, anyway, she gets in it, and we live 2.5 hours north of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where she went to school in this little town of Grove City. And all summer long, I sort of jabbed Mrs. Uppington with, honey, pretty soon you're going to have to say goodbye to your little firstborn. And whenever I brought it up, she'd cry. She'd go like this, oh, I don't want to talk about it, Leamy. I don't want to talk about it. And throughout the summer, I'd give her a little jab once in a while. Honey, 4 weeks from today, we're going to take Holly to school. Honey, I don't want to talk about it. And she'd tear up. In retrospect, I know why I acted like that baby the family, who was tantalizing big sister. And by the way, I woke up my sister one morning with a juicy night crawler, and I was just touching her nose as she was sleeping. That's one of her vivid memories. In fact, she's at my house over on the east side right now. But anyway, the day comes when you have to take that daughter to college. It's an interesting experience. How many of you have ever taken a kid to school? It's an interesting ride because it certainly brings you to that precipice in life when you realize, hey, this is a new journey. This is a new chapter. And we took 2 cars to get all the freshman stuff there. We pull into Grove City, and they had a big sign, men this way, women this way. We pull it next to the dorm. And boys, about 15 or 20 of them, emptied those cars in seconds. And these boys all had blue button-down shirts on. And I figured out quickly, these guys are checking out the freshman fillies, you know, who are coming into the female dorms. I'm sure they were just service-oriented young people helping the university, but being a man, that thought did cross my mind. Well, anyway, if you've ever done that, you meet a lot of people, you're welcomed by far too many people, you forget half their names, but then you get to the point where your kid is going to live in this little cubicle called a dorm room, and you meet the stranger that your daughter is going to live with. And then you meet the stranger's parents. And then you get to this point, and I'll never forget it, because Holly began the process of saying goodbye. And I found myself all of a sudden just saying, I'm freaking out. I felt claustrophobic. And I said, not here, not here. I said, and I ran out of the dorm. I just had to get out of there. I didn't realize at the time what was happening to me, but I knew it was coming, that we were going to say goodbye. Now, I'm the one that's kidding my wife all summer long about saying goodbye. And all of a sudden, my heart starts fluttering. I feel nervous. I don't know what's happened to me. And so I'm walking like this, typical male, 50 yards in front of my wife and daughter, who are walking in harmony like this on the sidewalk, okay? And then they come up behind the dorm where the car is. I'll never forget this moment, because now they've stopped moving, and now they're both 5'9", and they're doing this thing back and forth. Just a gentle rock. And the sun is in my wife's face, and I can see the tears streaming down her face. I remember thinking, don't come here. Stay right there, because I can't handle any of this. And of course, as soon as I had the thought, she released her mother and made a beeline for me. And she comes up to me like this, she says, Daddy, I love you so much. And she puts her arms around me. And all of a sudden, friends, I lost it. And I started to cry. And my whole body, gentlemen, have you ever cried like this, where your whole body does this sort of jerking motion? And she looked up at me and she said, Daddy. I don't think she ever saw me profusely cry like that. And the weird thing about it was, people ask me, what was the strangest thing that ever happened to you in parenting? This is it. You're about to hear it. And I'm sitting there, and I'm crying, okay? And my tears are falling on Holly's front, okay? And it's amazing what you think about in this moment. But I'm sitting there, I'm just gutting it out. The tears are flowing down my face. They're falling on her. And all of a sudden, what I thought of was Holly Leman's bra. Not the bra she had on, but the bra that I stepped on one morning when I'm getting ready for work. I'm getting ready for work. I'm in my room, and I stepped on something. It had some metal thing in it or something. Caught my attention, my foot, and I thought, what the heck is that? And I kicked it, and I picked it up. I don't make these things up. I didn't know what it was. I figured it was my wife's something, but I couldn't imagine where it would go. So I went around the rack, and my wife's in the rack. I said, honey, what is this? She said, honey, that's Holly's bra. She's 10 years old. I said, Holly's got a bra? This looks like I was going to grow up and become a bra someday. It was what they call a training bra. And again, she had nothing to train. And I want you to understand, I'm holding my 18-year-old daughter in a parking lot. My tears are falling on her, and I'm saying to myself, you can't be all grown up. Have I taught you everything I need to teach you about life? Are you really ready to be on your own? In true male fashion, I said, Holly, you need to leave. And I took her little waist. She's built like her mom, and I just sort of twisted her like this. You know what she did? She took off for the dorm. And she didn't turn back. And she didn't look back. And just before she disappeared, I yelled, honey, call us tonight, honey. She never looked back. She did this over her shoulder, like, see ya, and disappeared. I looked at Mrs. Ubby and I said, let's get out of here. We drove up I-79. It was miserable. There was a part, I felt like somebody just stuck a knife in here and gave it a little twist turn for effect. We drove up I-79, and for 20, 25 minutes at a time, we wouldn't speak a word to each other. I'd cry, she'd cry, I'd say, give me some more Kleenex. I'd blow my honker. I mean, it was miserable. We stopped at a Red Lobster, had a dead fish. Nothing helped. Nothing helped. Drove home to our summer place in New York, and I, like a darn fool, I'm sitting there. I know she's going to call me. She knows I go to bed early. 10 o'clock, I'm done. I'm sitting there waiting for the phone to ring. It doesn't ring. Doesn't ring the next day either. Long story short, it doesn't ring for a week. Next Sunday, the following Sunday. Now, the one thing I did right, former dean of students, I didn't call her. I waited for her to call, which was a good thing. But you know, that Sunday afternoon when she called, I heard that little voice. Emotionally, I could have crawled through that phone wire. I mean, I was so excited to hear that little voice. We heard all about freshman week, Three Rivers, what Pittsburgh's like at night when you come through the tunnels and all that. We got toward the end of the conversation. I said, Holly, I got to ask you something, honey. When you walked away last week, what were you thinking about? She said, oh, Daddy, it's funny, I was thinking about that this week. I said, well, what were you thinking about? She says, I was thinking about the fact that you and Mommy had brought me up right. And now it was my turn to go and do it in life. Now I ask you, isn't that what training up a child is all about? And aren't they all different? You know, as little kids, Holly, if you gave her a treat, we'd sit there and she'd study things. She'd read the back of the labels at age 6 and 7. She'd look for the Good Housekeeping seal of approval. Her younger sister, Chrissy, the first rubber lizard she saw, she had to have it. These kids are night and day different. They still are night and day different. Well, I guess it's been 8 or 9 years. I was closing a seminar up in Phoenix in an auditorium with about 3,000 people in it. And we're coming to this point where, you know, this is what parenting's all about. And I was sharing with this audience this very story, and a young woman started walking down the sideway, down the very extreme part, and I gave her a quick look, and I thought to myself, that looks like Holly. That was my first thought, that kid looked like Holly. And I kept talking, and she kept coming closer. And I said, it's Holly! Holly's here! Well, she was in Phoenix. I didn't know she was in Phoenix. She didn't know I was speaking. She was in the audience. And she comes right up on stage, and I got a lapel mic right here. And she gets up to me on stage, and she gets on stage. Everybody gives her a standing ovation. I've been working like a dog. They're sitting. You know what I'm saying? She walks up. It's Holly here. They all get on their feet and applaud Holly's coming. Well, they can hear every word she says. And she says as only a firstborn daughter can say. She said, Daddy, you need to learn to tell that story right. I said, honey, I did tell it right. What are you talking about? She said, no. She says, there's something I have to tell you I've never told you. I said, what? She said, I didn't turn around because I was crying. And I didn't want you and Mommy to think that I couldn't make it in life. Doesn't that hit home here? See, your kid needs you to believe in your kid. And their dreams and aspirations are all in different areas. Some of you got kids, I've talked to you at break time, aren't doing a lick. Some are just smoking weed, 16 years of age. They're cool. They watch MTV. You don't hover over them. Maybe they're going to get it someday. Maybe the Marine Corps is going to help that kid. Who knows? But we all grow differently. And God's timing is unique. You need to pray for those kids, for their protection, because they're so stupid. And when they're in that age group, and I mean stupid because they'll drink and drive and they'll do drugs. I mean, they run, get people pregnant. I mean, all kinds of things can happen. Think about it. But isn't this what training up a child's all about? That you let them go. And I'll tell you, there's nothing better than understanding you gave it your best shot. Are you going to do this thing called being a parent perfectly? No, but none of us are perfect. That's the cool thing about it. And then you let go and let God. I've never been a bumper sticker person. There's certain bumper stickers just drive me up the wall. Things like, caution, in case of rapture, this car will go unmanned. I would personally like to punch the Christian out who has that bumper sticker. Of course, in a Christian-loving way. But I love the one that says, Christians aren't perfect, they're just forgiven. So with everything we do with raising kids, forgiveness reigns, grace reigns. Why? Because the Bible teaches if we don't forgive other people, guess what? God isn't going to forgive us. So you train them up, you do the best you can. The reality is that God gave your kid and my kid free will. They can say, stick it in your ear, God, I want no part of you. Or they can say, Lord, I need you in my life. I spoke here Sunday morning. In second service, we had, 25 people come down here whose lives are going to change because they made that life-changing decision that, Lord, I am going to follow your way. And all of us come to that precipice in life where it's either your way and you're going to do it by yourself, or you're going to be submissive to your eternal Father. And in the flesh, Jesus is Lord of your life. Well, listen, we're 5 minutes over. We pride ourselves on starting on time and ending on time. We do our best. But my thanks to Pastor Zane and his staff and the people who've been great here. Those of you who missed the national championship tonight, especially you men, should be applauded. Ladies, if your husband is a sports freak, he's given up this game to be with you tonight. Not to tell you what to do, but it seems to me in a very natural way, not being one who really believes in rewards per se, but I'll just plant that little seed in your brain as I say good night, and God bless each of you. Good night. Thank you for being here.